Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a fascinating and highly specific relationship theory from commentator Miss Alice. We are unpacking her deep dive into the silent, internal breakdown of marital communication. Whether you completely agree with her conclusions or not, her breakdown of how couples argue gives us an incredibly detailed lens to view relationship conflict. We're going to map out exactly how she claims our defensive reflexes can quietly dismantle a partnership from the inside out. Her whole central thesis here is that struggling marriages don't actually lack communication. In fact, they usually have a ton of it. Instead, they suffer from what she calls the conversation that never gets finished. You know the kind. It's a dialogue that genuinely starts with a real concern, but gets permanently derailed before any actual acknowledgement or productive change can happen. So, let's map out her exact model. We'll be looking at the unfinished conversation, the 5 redirects, the cultural root behind it all, the hidden cost of silence, and finally, her 30-second solution. Starting off with Section 1, the unfinished conversation. Picture this. A husband finally gathers the courage to bring up a difficult but legitimate concern. According to Miss Alice, right in that fraction of a second, an automatic defense mechanism activates in the wife. Now, she is very careful to point out that this isn't malicious. It's not some calculated strategy to avoid consequences. It's a pure reflex. It triggers just to protect her from that deep vulnerability of self-examination, the fear of feeling insufficient or being seen as the literal source of the problem. It works perfectly to guard against feeling vulnerable, but unfortunately, it completely fails to actually resolve the marital issue. Which brings us to Section 2, the 5 redirects. So how does this actually play out in an argument? Well, she lays out these 5 specific steps that automatically hijack that original concern. Basically, they guarantee the core problem never gets solved because the focus just keeps shifting further and further away from whatever the husband originally brought to the table. Let's break down exactly what happens in each step. It kicks off with redirect 1. He brings up an issue, and boom, the defense mechanism immediately points away from it, bringing up his past imperfections or his general behavior instead. The original concern is just left hanging. If he pushes forward, redirect 2 kicks in. The whole dynamic flips. Suddenly, she's not a partner being asked to examine her behavior. She's framed as the victim of an attack. And if he's still trying to get back to his point, redirect 3 hits with intense emotional escalation. We're talking tears or anger, creating this heavy atmosphere where pursuing the original concern makes the husband feel absolutely cruel for even opening his mouth in the first place. Now, if he somehow pushes through that emotional wall, the final 2 redirects drop. Redirect 4 is the reversal. This throws all the accountability right back onto him, claiming that his past failures actually justify her present behavior. And if all else fails, out comes redirect 5, tone policing. Suddenly, the entire fight is about how he raised the issue, his tone, his timing, the exact words he used. It turns into a massive meta conversation about his delivery, completely abandoning the actual issue he wanted to fix. Moving on to Section 3, the cultural root. You might be wondering, where does this intense reflex even come from? Miss Alice traces it back to the cultural environment we're living in. She argues society constantly bombards women with a very specific message. You are fundamentally good, your feelings are always valid, and if something's wrong in a relationship, it's probably the other person's fault. Because of this constant validation, she suggests women are rarely required by the world around them to engage in the deeply vulnerable, uncomfortable experience of honest self-examination. Next up, Section 4, the cost of silence. This leads right to the fatal misunderstanding at the very heart of her theory. Imagine a husband hitting these defensive walls over and over for weeks, maybe months. Eventually, he learns the lesson. His genuine concerns are not going to be heard. So what does he do? He just stops bringing them up. He absorbs the problems. Now, the wife experiences this new silence and thinks, great, no conflict. The marriage is peaceful and running smoothly. But from his perspective, that silence is a permanent internal withdrawal. He is quietly adjusting to a life where his experience doesn't matter, essentially dismantling the partnership from the inside out while she thinks everything is perfectly fine. Finally, Section 5, the 30-second solution. So, how do you break this cycle? Miss Alice's fix isn't some massive lifestyle overhaul or a different partner. It literally comes down to just 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds of highly uncomfortable consideration. When that defense mechanism flares up, she advises women to make a deliberate choice. Notice it happening, and then choose to sit in that intense discomfort of self-examination, just for half a minute. Actually hear what he's saying before your brain begins the process of redirecting it. Honestly ask yourself, does his concern have merit? Miss Alice argues that discovering you might be wrong doesn't destroy your worth. In fact, she says this tiny 30-second pause is the true foundation of a genuine partnership. She wraps up her whole analysis by turning the mirror directly onto the audience, dropping a pretty heavy question. When was the last time a conversation your husband started about something bothering him actually finished? It's the kind of question that really makes you stop and think about the reality of your own communication dynamics. Regardless of where we sit on the cultural spectrum, it leaves us all to wonder, are our most important conversations truly reaching a resolution, or are we merely trapped in an endless loop of redirecting them? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I'll leave you with that to think about.